I'm Joe Cherries, and this is my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Violet using only Fairy-type Pokemon. The reason I chose Fairy-type for my first ever hardcore Nuzlocke is because it's been my favorite ever since it was introduced in Generation 6. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has a ton of awesome encounters for us today. Screamtail and Fluttermane are exclusive to Scarlet, so we won't be able to use them today. Iron Valiant isn't exclusive to Violet, but it's only available in the postgame, so that's not going to be a viable encounter either. In standard hardcore Nuzlocke rules, you can only catch the first viable encounter on each route. But seeing as Generation 9 is an open world Pokemon game, I'm going to allow myself to catch the first encounter of each unique evolutionary line. The rest of the rules are, once a Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed, no items in battle except held items, no overleveling past the next boss's ace, this includes gym leaders, team star bosses, and the final Elite Four members ace. And the game must be played on set mode at all times. Technically, Scarlet and Violet don't have a set mode, so I'll just be saying no whenever asked to switch out my Pokemon. It's time to start our adventure, so we head downstairs, say hi to Mom, and then like in every Pokemon game, a stranger breaks into our house. Seriously, why in the Pokemon universe is it just okay to walk into a stranger's house? Our mom tells us to go get our stuff and get ready, and God, I hate this hat. Why do we have to wear this hat to start the game? Luckily, the man who broke into our house brought us a Pokemon, but sadly, none of the starters evolve into a fairy, so we're gonna pick Quaxly, giving our rival Fuecoco, who I think will be the hardest starter for our fairies to face. Though with only Quaxly in our team for now, it is very easy to beat Fuecoco in the opening battle. With that out of the way, we find our bike, give it a sandwich, and go find our real starter, Azurill, who I forget to nickname for now, but has a huge power ability which will be super useful in this playthrough. Right around the corner, I find a Ralts. I catch it and nickname it Ivy. This reminds me to nickname my Azurill, who I call Alayla. Leave a comment if you know what the naming scheme for my Pokemon is for this video. Our next two encounters are literally standing right next to us. The first one is a Fido, who we catch and name Nimrus. The second is an Igglybuff, who we also catch and name Una. For our next challenge, we have our second fight with Nimona. She leads with her Fuecoco as we send out Nimrus. We start off with a bite, doing about a third, as she retaliates with a leer, lowering our defense. I select bite again, taking her into kill range for another bite. And we also get the flinch. This means next turn, a bite can take out Fuecoco without taking any damage. Nimona's last Pokemon is Palmy, and she terrestrializes it, giving it double stab on its electric moves. We go for bite, dealing over half to the Palmy, as a Thunder Shock only deals 10 damage to us. That means the second bite can finish off Palmy and win us this battle. With Nimona defeated, we can finally head into the school. In here we find Arvin, who gives us the location of the Titans. I was originally going to include all of the Titan fights in this video, but honestly, they're all pushovers and I defeated them quite easily. We then get a call from the mysterious Cassiopeia. We find out Clavo was just listening to us outside the door. Seriously, he breaks into our house and now he's spying on us? What is wrong with this man? We then get the locations of the gyms from Nimona, and a second phone call from Cassiopeia gives us the locations of the Team Star bases. On our way to the first gym, we get a few new Pokemon. First, Una evolves into a Jigglypuff. Then we run into an Eevee, catch it, and name it Rubinia. Up in these little ruins, we find a Tinkaton. And Tinkaton is honestly one of my favorite new Pokemon, so I can't wait to use her. We catch it and name it Vendilion. And finally, Alayla evolves into a Marill, gaining the Fairy type. Following Alayla's evolution, it's finally time to take on the first gym, which is of course led by Katie, the Bug type specialist. She leads off with Nimble, as I lead off with Nimrus. I start the fight off with a charcoal boosted Fire Fang, taking Nimble to the deep orange. We also get the flinch, which wasn't needed because we resist all of Nimble's moves, but it's still nice to get. Next turn, I finish Nimble off with a second Fire Fang, and this brings out her next Pokemon, Tarantula. I then go for the super effective Fire Fang that takes the spider to the low orange as it hits back with a resisted Bug Bite. A second Fire Fang finishes off the Yarn Spider, and this brings out her ace, Teddy Ursa. She then terrestrializes it into a Bug type as we go for Fire Fang. But the 95% accuracy move misses. Uh-oh, we could be in trouble. Teddy Ursa then goes for Fury Swipe, which lucky for us only hits twice. We could be in danger of fainting if the bear keeps using Fury Swipes, but I have noticed that Katie's AI likes to go for Fury Swipe turn 1, then go for Fury Cutter after that. This time we have much better luck as we hit the Fire Fang and get a burn. As predicted, the now burned bear goes for the Fury Cutter, but because he's burned, it only does 4 damage. Next turn, we hit with a second Fire Fang, taking the bear all the way down to the red, as it goes for another Fury Cutter that only tickles us for 5 damage. The burn damage isn't quite enough to kill the bear, but not to risk anything next turn, we go for the 100% accurate bite and finish off this fight, winning us our first gym badge. Soon after the gym, we get our next evolution, as Rubinia evolves into my favorite evolution, Sylveon. The next big boss standing in our way is Brassius, the grass-type gym leader. He leads off with Petalil, as we lead off with Nimrus again. I love this dog so much. We start with a Fire Fang that does about 3/4 as Petalil goes for a sleep powder and hits, putting us to sleep. Petalil is pretty weak overall, so we should be able to just stay in with Nimrus until we wake up from the sleep. We stay asleep for the first turn as Petalil hits us with a Mega Drain, dealing more damage than I thought. With Petalil doing so much damage, we really need to wake up now, and luckily we do, hit a Fire Fang and finish off the baby flower. Brassius then sends out his next Pokemon, Anxiety Olive. We go for a super effective Fire Fang, dealing massive damage and getting the burn. With the burn halving its attack stat, its next Razor Leaf does pitiful damage. Next turn, a Bite devours the Olive. This leads into his ace Pokemon, Sudowoodo. I stay in with Nimrus, thinking I could survive a Trailblaze. I go for Fire Fang, dealing a lot less damage than expected because of Sudowoodo's amazing defense. And then, tragedy strikes. Our best boy Fido goes down to a Trailblaze. But we have no time to mourn right now, so we switch directly into Vendilion, who resists all of Sudowoodo's moves. Honestly, I should be going after the Sudowoodo on the special side because its defense is insane. We go back and forth exchanging Pounces and Trailblazes until I'm too weak to stay in. I now switch into Rubinia, who tanks the Trailblaze surprisingly well. Knowing I can survive another, I stay in, tank the hit, and Disarming Voice is enough to finish off this battle. Honestly, I played this fight pretty bad, and I probably should have lost more Pokemon than just my dog. But even my sloppy play was enough to earn me the second gym badge. During the battle, Alayla levels up, meaning she's ready to evolve into an Azumarill. And though we can never truly replace our beloved dog, we do have to fill his party spot. So I run around a bit and run into a Hatenna. I catch it and name it Widwin. I don't foresee Widwin being very useful, as Ivy is a better Psychic Fairy type. Speaking of Ivy, she reaches level 20 and evolves into a Curlia. While doing some exploring, I find a Floette. I catch it and nickname it Bitter Blossom. We add it to our party and send Whited to the box. With that out of the way, it's time to face the next big boss, Giacomo of Team Star, who specializes in dark types. We do have the type advantage in this battle, but the Pokemon he leads with, Pawniard, is part Steel type, so he threatens a lot of our team with Metal Claw. Luckily, we have Alayla, whose part Water type makes it so she will take neutral damage from Metal Claw. The Pawniard goes for Metal Claw, dealing minimal damage, as we respond with an Aqua Tail that does massive damage. A second Metal Claw from the Pawniard doesn't even take us to half, and we finish off the Pawniard with a second Aqua Tail. Up next is Revavroom, the Segrin Starmobile. Honestly, the first time I saw it, I was super excited to see that this car was a Pokemon. As the Revavroom enters the battlefield, it lowers our attack, which is not good because Alayla is a physical attacker. First turn out, it chips us with Swift as we chip it back with Aqua Tail, but we don't do that much damage due to the attack drop from Intimidate. It follows up with a Metal Sound, harshly lowering our special defense. Another Aqua Tail does decent damage, and I think we can survive another Swift even with our harshly lowered special defense, so I stay in. A Swift takes us all the way down to just 14 HP, and another Aqua Tail does a little chip and doesn't even take the car below half. Another Swift will be enough to finish us out, so we have to switch, and we go into Vendilion, who resists the Swift on the switch-in. Now Vendilion resists all of the car's moves, so we should be able to easily win from here. The following turn, it uses Metal Sound to sharply lower our special defense as we go for a Draining Kiss, healing up everything we took from the Swift. This thing can't really hurt us with our Draining Kiss recovery. So after what feels like forever, the car finally faints, winning us the battle and the badge from DJ Giacomo. The beginning of the game has been pretty easy so far, but I expect it to get much harder. Our next encounter up is a Mimikyu. We catch it and name it Glenalendra. We add it to our team and send Floette to the box. Before the next gym, we have to face Nimona, but honestly, she isn't a problem yet until she has Skeledirge. The gym challenge for Iona's gym makes us play Where's Waldo, and honestly, I'm super embarrassed that this took me about a minute to find the first time I did it. He's not hidden at all. He's literally just sitting there. Also, screw this Joy-Con drift. It's so annoying. Does anyone else have Joy-Con drift problems? The next gym battle, Iono, is a tough one for sure. After terrestrializing, her Mismagius in the back has no weaknesses, making it an extra big threat. I think the best idea is to go for a Calm Mind setup plan with Rubinia, but that's going to be tough considering all of her Pokemon threaten with Spark, which can paralyze. Luckily, Gen 9 has an awesome new item known as the Convert Cloak. This item protects the holder from the additional effects of other Pokemon's damaging moves. This means Flamethrower can't burn, Confusion can't confuse, and most importantly for this fight, Spark can't paralyze. With no threat of paralysis, the Rottwell in the front is an absolute chump. We set up 3 Calm Minds for free and one-shot it with a Draining Kiss. The Draining Kiss heals us up to decent HP as Iono sends out our next Pokemon, Bellibolt. Now Belly Bolt could hit quite hard, but only after you trigger its ability Electromorphosis. So this gives us a chance to set up another 2 Calm Minds and then one-shot the Belly Bolt with another Draining Kiss, taking us to full HP. Up next is Luxio. It hits us with a Spark, dealing okay damage as the stored power absolutely obliterates this thing. Up last is the Pokemon we've been scared of, Mismagius. With 5 special defense boosts, this thing shouldn't be able to do much damage. Mismagius outspeeds and goes for Hex and gets a crit, but it's not enough to take us out, and a stored power absolutely annihilates the ghost Pokemon. This gym is one of the biggest challenges in the early game. Honestly, without the Convert Cloak, I'm not sure how I would have handled it. After earning that badge, Vendilion decides it's time to evolve into a Tinkatuff. With our 3rd gym badge acquired, it's time to head to our 2nd Team Star raid. This is the Team Star Fire base, led by Mela. Now Mela can be a huge threat with her lead Torkoal having Drought. To combat this, I taught Alayla Rain Dance. This will cancel out the sun and set up the rain. But funnily enough, as this battle begins, it's already raining out. And when she sends out her Torkoal, her Drought fails and does nothing, and the rain just remains up. This makes the Torkoal incredibly easy. And Aqua Tail just one-shots it, and we're on to our next Pokemon, the Shredder Starmobile. It has a massive HP bar, so I doubt we can just one-shot it. But with the rain and our resistance to fire, I doubt it can do much to us. It goes for a Screech, which misses, as we go for an Aqua Tail, which also misses. Revavroom then gets a speed boost from its ability, Speed Boost. The next turn, a car hits us with a Blazing Torque, but it only deals a measly 6 damage as we both resist it and the rain is powering it down. Unfortunately, this move causes the burn, so we have to deal with that now. Even after the burn, an Aqua Tail still does over a third. Revavroom then hits us with a Swift, also dealing pitiful damage. Then our second Aqua Tail takes the Starmobile into the orange. In a final move of desperation, the Revavroom goes for an Overheat and misses. This means a third Aqua Tail can finish off the Revavroom and earn us our 2nd Team Star badge. Honestly, if you're struggling with Mela, just bring Rain Dance to this fight. Her Torkoal is extremely slow, so she probably won't even get off a move before you can set up Rain Dance. Once in the rain, her Pokemon really aren't threats at all. Before the next gym, I decided it's time to evolve Una into a Wigglytuff using a Moonstone we found earlier. And honestly, I don't even know why I have Una on my team. I barely ever use her. While leveling up for our next gym fight, I find a shiny Makuhita. This thing is so awesome. Look at his cute little red gloves. Because he's so cute, I kill him and move on. With that dealt with, we head off to our next encounter, an Impidimp. We catch it and name it Rankle. For now, we send him to the box, but he'll be a useful team member later. Right before the next gym, our team gets its biggest upgrade yet as Ivy evolves into a Gardevoir. With our newest weapon, we head to face the water-type gym leader, Kofu. This man has some of the greatest facial hair in all of the Pokemon universe. He leads off with Veluza, as I lead off with the recently evolved Ivy. We outspeed, go for a Thunderbolt, and one-shot the Psychic Water-type. Up next is his Wugtrio, and this thing is extremely speedy. It goes first, using Headbutt, dealing decent damage, and gets a flinch. Next turn, it goes for Headbutt again, and gets a second flinch. This is really bad. I really thought I'd be able to take out both of his first 2 Pokemon with Thunderbolt, but it looks like we're going to have to switch now. I switch into my bulkiest team member, Alayla. A Headbutt on the switch, and the next turn deal about 40 damage. Then a follow-up Play Rough is enough to one-shot the Wugtrio, as it has abysmal defense. Up last is Crabominable, who he Terra types into a pure Water type. I also Terra type into a pure Fairy type, which might have been a mistake because now we take neutral damage from Crabhammer. The Water Crab then hits us with a Slam and takes us to 28 HP. A Play Rough then deals massive damage, taking it to the orange. We're too low to stay in now, so we switch into Glenalendra. Her Disguise can absorb a Crabhammer on the switch, but it doesn't even have to, as the Crabhammer misses. We then select Woodhammer, outspeed, and finish off the battle, earning us the 4th gym badge. Honestly, I have no clue why Mimikyu learns Woodhammer by level up. Can someone explain it to me? But regardless of anything, we have to move on. We boost ourselves up to the next level cap and head in to face our biggest challenge yet, Atticus. He is the poison type leader of the Team Star base Navi. As most of you might know, poison both resists fairy moves and is super effective against fairies. He leads off with Skunk Tank, as we lead off with Vendilion, whose steel typing makes her immune to poison moves. Forgetting this thing has Sucker Punch, I select an attacking move, get Sucker Punched, and flinch. Now Sucker Punch is the only move this thing can actually hit us with. So for the next 4 turns, we use Baby Doll Eyes, causing the Sucker Punch to miss and healing us to full with leftovers. Once the Skunk Tank is out of Sucker Punch PP, it can no longer do any damage to us. So we slowly and painfully grind this thing down with Metal Claws until it dies. Up next is our team's worst nightmare, the Steel Poison type, Reveroom. The Reveroom goes for a bulldoze, dealing massive damage that would have killed us with a crit. Luckily, we avoided the crit and survive and hit back with a foul play, dealing about a fourth. We swap out to a Layla, who tanks the bulldoze pretty well on the switch, but gets her speed lowered. He then goes for a neutral Iron Head, hitting us and taking us down to the orange. A quad super effective bulldoze is then enough to take out the Reveroom. Next, Atticus sends out Muck. Knowing it'll go for a poison move, I switch into Vendilion, who is immune. Now that it won't go for a poison move versus our steel type, I can take this chance to switch into Rubinia. On the switch, Rubinia takes just 5 damage for a Mud Slap. I then terrestrialize into a normal type, which means poison type moves will now be neutral against us. I then go for a Combine, raising both my special attack and special defense. With Rubinia's awesome special defense and the boost, we are able to easily tank a Sludge Wave that is now neutral. The only real danger to us now is a crit or getting poisoned. But we don't have to worry about getting poisoned, as I equipped Rubinia with the Covert Cloak. We set up 2 more Combines, then we one-shot the Muck with a stored power. This brings out his final Pokemon, another Reveroom, but this time it's the Navi Starmobile. It outspeeds us and goes for a Noxious Torque, taking us all the way down to 14 HP. Then a 140 power, super effective stored power deals massive damage to the stupid car, but doesn't quite get the kill. Knowing it's going for another Noxious Torque, we switch out into Vendilion, who is immune. We then switch into Glenelendra, whose disguise can absorb any move. It goes for a spin out and breaks our disguise. This also lowers the car's speed, but Mimikyu outspeeds Reveroom at base. So we can go for a Shadow Claw, finish off the car, and win our 3rd Team Star badge. This fight was extremely tricky for our team. We had to avoid a few crits to sneak away with no deaths. Following this battle, we head off to find our next encounter, a Dedenne. We catch it and name it Pestermite. We aren't going to use Dedenne much this run, so we send it to the box. We then level up Rankle, who evolves into a Morgrem. We then add it to the party and send Una to the box where she belongs. We then head over to face the next gym leader, Larry. And seriously, what happens to these people? Do they just die? Larry's team is full of physical attackers, and Fairies, as we know, have pretty bad physical defense overall. This fact could make this gym pretty hard, but Kamala only knows one attack that can hit our Glenelendra, Sucker Punch, which can't hit us as long as we don't attack him. Meaning we can just click bulk up until our attack and defense are completely maxed out, then sweep his team with 1 Drain Punch each and earn ourselves our 5th gym badge. Mimikyu's learn set is honestly so weird, but honestly it gives us great coverage, so I'm not complaining. Right after defeating Larry, Nimona challenges us to another battle. She leads off with Lycanroc as we lead off with Glenelendra. She goes for an Accelerock that breaks our disguise. We then take this turn to set up a bulk up. Next turn, a second Accelerock deals minimal damage to us as we set up a second bulk up. A third Accelerock then fails to take us below half as a Drain Punch one-shots the Lycanroc and heals us back up to full HP. Nimona's next Pokemon is Palmo. We outspeed, go for Drain Punch, and take it all the way down to the red. The Palmo then goes for Thunder Wave, but misses. A second Drain Punch next turn is then enough to finish off the Palmo, bringing out our 3rd Pokemon, Goomy. Now Goomy is extremely weak, so we can pretty much do whatever we want to it. We take this chance to switch out to a Layla as Goomy hits us with an incredibly weak Water Pulse. Next turn we set up the Rain with Rain Dance as Goomy goes for a powered up Water Pulse and deals a whopping 11 damage. With the Rain set up, we're now ready to move on to our next Pokemon, so we go for a Play Rough, but we miss, and the Goomy responds in a massive way, hitting a critical hit Water Pulse that deals 17 damage to us. Luckily, next turn we don't miss again, and Play Rough takes it out. Up next is her biggest threat, and the reason we set up the Rain, Skeledirge. As with all the rival battles, she takes this chance to terrestrialize into a pure fire type for double stab on her fire moves. She then goes for a Torch Song, but thanks to the Rain that we set up and our resistance, we only take 15 damage. But Skeledirge does get a special attack boost. But that won't matter at all, as a stab, Rain boosted super effective Aqua Tail is enough to one-shot the Skeledirge and win us this rival battle. Before the next gym, we get 2 major upgrades. First, Vendilion evolves into the reason I wanted to do this run, Tinkaton. Upon evolving, it also learns his signature move, Gigaton Hammer, which is beastly. After that, Rankle then evolves into his final form, Grimmsnarl. With these 2 upgrades, we're ready to take on the next gym leader, Rhyme, the Ghost-type Rapper. This is also the only major battle in the game that's a double battle. Rhyme leads off with Bayonet and Mimikyu, as we lead off with Rankle and Vendilion. Bayonet starts the battle off with a Shadow Sneak on Vendilion, dealing decent damage due to a critical hit. Next, Mimikyu hits Rankle with a pretty weak slash. Thanks to Vendilion's Mold Breaker ability, we can bypass Mimikyu's disguise and one-shot it with a super effective Gigaton Hammer. A Dark Pulse from Rankle also gets the Oko on Bayonet. Rhyme then sends in her final 2 Pokemon, Toxtricity and Houndstone. I target Houndstone with both of my attacks, as a Play Rough would be enough to knock out the Rankle from this range. Rankle goes first with a Sucker Punch, getting the one-shot thanks to a critical hit. I'm not sure if the critical hit was necessary, but it certainly didn't hurt. Thanks to the Houndstone being knocked out, the Vendilion now targets the Toxtricity with a Foul Play, dealing just over half. A Discharge then takes both Rankle and Vendilion below half. With both of my Pokemon outspeeding, we should easily knock it out in the next turn. I go for the safest terrestrialization of all time as a Sucker Punch knocks out the Toxtricity and wins us our 6th gym badge. Afterwards, we head to find our final encounter, a Klefki. We catch it and name it Latchkey, but honestly he's just going to stay in the box because Vendilion is a superior steel fairy type. With our final encounter out of the way, we have nothing to do but to truck through all of these bosses. Up next is Tulip, the psychic type gym leader, and we have some pretty good answers to her team. She leads off with Farigiraf as we lead off with Rankle. The only move Farigiraf can hit us with is a resisted crunch. This means we can freely set up 3 nasty plots, getting us to +6 special attack. The only annoying thing this weird giraffe does is set up a reflect, which could be annoying later in this fight. We then terrestrialize into a pure dark type. This gives us double stab on Dark Pulse, which is more than enough to take out the Farafarig. This brings out Gardevoir, who is a huge threat to Rankle. We should be able to survive one Dazzling Gleam as long as it doesn't critical hit. She goes for the Dazzling Gleam and takes us all the way down to 7 HP, but we live. Then a super powered Dark Pulse absolutely obliterates the Psychic Fairy type. Tulip's third Pokemon is Espathra. She has Priority Quick Attack, and with us being so low, she will definitely go for it, so we switch into Glenalendra, who is unaffected by the Quick Attack. The Reflect also wears off in this turn, which is great considering Glenalendra is a physical attacker. Next turn, we outspeed and hit the Lady Gaga Duck with a Shadow Claw that does massive damage. It then hits us with a Psychic that breaks our disguise, so next turn we can easily kill it with another Shadow Claw. This leads into our final Pokemon, Florges. Like with all these gym battles, she terrestrializes into a pure Psychic type, meaning a Shadow Claw is super effective against her. It doesn't quite get the KO, meaning it can retaliate with a strong Moonblast that doesn't quite kill us. That means one last Shadow Claw can finish off this battle and win us our 7th gym badge. Honestly, having a Dark and Ghost type going into this battle made it extremely easy. With 7 gyms down, it's time to face the last gym leader, Grusha, the Icy Boy. He leads off with his Frostmoth as I lead off with Vendilion. We outspeed and go for Gigaton Hammer and absolutely squish the bug. The downside of Gigaton Hammer being so powerful is that you can't use it 2 turns in a row. But by using Protect in the turn after, we can guarantee that we can get off a shot with our Gigaton Hammer on each of his Pokemon, one-shotting them all and winning us this battle extremely easily. Protect Gigaton Hammer is an absolutely sick combo. Usually after earning the 8th gym badge in a Pokemon game, it's time to face the Elite Four. But we still have 2 more Team Star bases to take down before we can do that. The first of the 2 is Ortega, who uses fairy types just like us. He leads with Azumarill as we lead off with Vendilion. Azumarill is a bulky girl, and that plus the fact that Gigaton Hammer is neutral due to her water typing means that we can't one-shot this beefy girl. Not getting the one-shot proves to be super costly, as now Azumarill can use a charm, lowering our attack by 2 stages. We really don't want our attack to be that low, so we switch on to Ivy, who takes massive damage from an Aqua Tail. We really should have switched into a Layla here, as she could have tanked this much better. We then switch right back to Vendilion, meaning our attack is back to normal. On the switch, we take an Aqua Tail that takes us below half after our leftovers healing. Next, we go for Protect for a little bit of leftovers recovery, and I'm going to go for Protect every other turn, so I'm not going to mention it every time. A second Gigaton Hammer then finishes off the Azumarill. This brings out his next Pokemon, Wigglytuff. And Wigglytuff really isn't that tough at all, as we can just kill it with 1 Gigaton Hammer. This brings out his third Pokemon, Darkspun. On the first turn, Darkspun uses priority Baby Doll Eyes to lower our attack. This means Darkspun can survive 1 Gigaton Hammer in the red. Darkspun then hits us with a resisted Play Rough as we set up a Reflect for the incoming Starmobile. I then switch into a Layla, who gets hit with a weak Play Rough on the switch. I immediately switch back to Vendilion so we can have it in when the Starmobile hits the field. I was thinking that I would get rid of the attack drop, but the dog goes for another Baby Doll Eyes, lowering my attack again. The following turn, it does the same thing, and a Play Rough doesn't even finish it off. The following turn, we exchange Play Roughs, and mine is enough to finally finish off this annoying dog. This brings out his final Pokemon, the Rook Boss Starmobile. And the first turn, we go for Protect and see it's going for Steel Roller as Reflect wears off. It then hits us with another Steel Roller, taking us to the orange as we set up a new Reflect. On the next turn, it confuses us with Confuse Ray, but we break through the confusion and hit a Gigaton Hammer, which should do massive damage, but due to our 2 attack drops, it really doesn't do that much. This leads to an incredibly long chip down process, where I use Protect, Leftovers, and Play Roughs, and chip down the Starmobile slowly, and I mean very slowly, using the remaining PP in Play Rough. With no PP left in Play Rough, I send out Rubinia, who takes less than half on the switch thanks to the Reflect. We then terrestrialize into a normal type so as not to take super effective damage from steel moves, but honestly the terrestrialization was just unneeded as a Moonblast is enough to finish off the car from this health. This enters our 4th Team Star badge with only 1 remaining, and honestly I played this one incredibly sloppy. My switches honestly could have been much better, and I could have easily lost a Pokemon based on my poor play. But even with our sloppy play, we must push forward, and the next boss we're fighting is Aerie, the fighting Team Star leader. leader. She leads off with Toxicroak as we lead off with Ivy. Toxicroak is quad weak to Psychic type moves, so our Psychic type move, Psychic, is enough to one-shot it. Up next is Annihilate, who threatens Ivy with a super effective Rage Fist, so we have to switch. We go into Vendilion, who can tank Rage Fist pretty well. Vendilion steel typing means she takes neutral damage from fighting type moves, meaning the Annihilate will most likely go for close combat here. This means we can freely switch into Glenalendra, whose ghost typing means we're immune to fighting type moves. Annihilate could easily one-shot Glenalendra, but our disguise is still intact, meaning it has to take a turn to break it. This means we can outspeed it and hit with 2 Shadow Claws on the road and knock out the ghost fighting type Pokemon. She then sends in her third Pokemon, Passimian. We stay in, outspeed, go for a Play Rough, and miss, which is super annoying. The Passimian then hits us with a strong Seed Bomb, taking us to the orange. A second Seed Bomb could finish us off from this range, and I'm not sure a single Play Rough will be enough to take it out. So we switch into Abinia, who tanks the Seed Bomb pretty well on the switch. The following turn, Passimian outspeeds and hits us with a close combat, but thanks to our resistance, it only does about a third. Thanks to the special defense drop from close combat, a Moonblast is able to get a clean one-shot. Eri then sends out Lucario, who should be a huge threat to our team, but for some reason, instead of having a steel move, it has an empty slot. I really don't understand why in these late game fights, Pokemon just have empty move slots. Lucario's strongest move against Rubinia is Aura Sphere. This means we can do our free swap out into Glenalendra, who is unaffected. With Crunch being the only move that Lucario can use to hurt our Glenalendra, we can pretty much freely switch into Rankle, who quad resists the Crunch. Lucario then goes for an Aura Sphere on Rankle, taking him below half. We then follow up with a Play Rough that takes Lucario down into the orange. We might be able to survive one more Aura Sphere here, but honestly, a crit would kill us and we don't want to risk it. So we switch out into Ivy, who quad resist Aura Sphere. We then outspeed Lucario on the following turn and finish it off with a Moonblast. This brings out Aries' final Pokemon, the Calf Starmobile. Now by staying in here, we are risking a crit, but I think it's our best option. We Terrastalize into a pure Fairy type to do max damage. As the car outspeeds, hits us with a spin out, doing massive damage, but we survive on 27 HP, and a super effective Terra boosted Stab Moonblast is enough to one-shot the Starmobile and win us this battle. With our final Team Star battle now won, we can head to face the Elite Four. But before we do, I decided to make an upgrade to my team. I put a Layla in the box and switch them with Bitter Blossom. I level up Bitter Blossom to the level cap and give it a Shiny Stone to evolve it into a Florges. Layla was honestly awesome early game, but I think Bitter Blossom will be a better teammate for the Elite Four. We walk in, answer some really tricky questions, and then we're ready to face the first Elite Four member, Rika, the Ground Specialist. He leads off with a Wishcash as we lead off with Vendilion. And the first turn we set up a Stealth Rock, as Wishcash hits us with an Earth Power, dealing less than half after the Leftovers recovery. I now stay in to go for an attack, but I accidentally click Stealth Rocks again, which obviously fails. A second Earth Power then does massive damage, taking us all the way to the red. I don't think I can one-shot the Wishcash with my Vendilion, so I have to switch. I go into Bitter Blossom as Wishcash just misses a Muddy Water. A quad super effective Energy Ball is then enough to finish off the Wishcash next turn. This brings out his next Pokemon, Camerupt, who takes chip damage from our Stealth Rocks. We go for an Energy Ball that deals over half to the Camerupt. Camerupt then strikes back with a Fire Blast that deals about a third. This means next turn, a second Energy Ball can just take out the Camerupt and take us to his next Pokemon, Donphan. And Donphan has Sturdy, so that's why we set up the Stealth Rock so that we could one-shot it with Energy Ball. But after we go for Energy Ball, it doesn't quite get the one-shot surprisingly. And the Donphan responds with a super effective Iron Head, taking us all the way down to 14 HP. Honestly, we got extremely lucky to survive that. Because we outspeed, we can stay in and go for a second Energy Ball and take out the Donphan. With Donphan down, Rika sends out Dugtrio. And Dugtrio is a speedy boy, so we have to switch. We switch out to Rubinia as Dugtrio goes for a Sucker Punch and fails, meaning we just got a free switch in. The next turn, the Dugtrio outspeeds and sets up a Sandstorm as we set up a Calm Mind. The following turn, Dugtrio hits us with an Earthquake that deals pretty solid damage as we set up a second Calm Mind. Honestly, I underestimated the Dugtrio's damage here. So going into this next turn, a high roll or a crit could knock us out. We hold our breath, and the Earthquake takes us all the way down to 3 HP, but we survive and can take out the Dugtrio with a single Draining Kiss. The Draining Kiss also heals us enough so that the Sandstorm won't kill us. Up last is Rika's ace, Clodsire, who he terrestrializes into a pure ground type. We outspeed and go for a Draining Kiss, healing us up a lot and dealing about a third to the Clodsire. The Clodsire then goes for Toxic, but honestly it's too late now, and even after a turn of Protect, Toxic is nowhere near killing us, so a Moonblast can easily finish off the Pokemon and win us our first Elite Four battle. And just look how sour she is after we get the victory. Honestly, Rika is truly a poopy baby. Next Elite Four member is a literal child, Poppy, who specializes in steel types. She leads off with Caparaja as we lead off with Glenalendra. On turn 1, we set up a Swords Dance, raising our attack by 2 stages. Caparaja then spends the turn setting up a Stealth Rock, meaning our disguise is still intact. Because of this, we can set up a second Swords Dance to +4 attack. Caparaja then uses a Heavy Slam, which just breaks our disguise. Heavy Slam could easily one-shot us, so we need to finish off the Caparaja now, and we do with a single Drain Punch. Up next is Magnezone, and this thing has Sturdy, so it's going to take at least 2 hits to kill. On turn 1, we set up our third Swords Dance, taking us all the way to +6. As Magnezone sets up a pretty useless Light Screen. Next turn, I go for a Resisted Play Rough, hoping to just break its Sturdy and not deal a ton of damage. But we almost take it all the way down to its Sturdy with the +6 Play Rough. Magnezone then strikes back with a Flash Cannon, dealing massive damage. We can then outspeed on the next turn and finish it off with a Drain Punch. Her third Pokemon up is Bronzong. Thinking it'll get the knockout, I go for a Drain Punch, but the Bronzong lives on a sliver of HP. But thanks to the heal from Drain Punch, we are able to survive the incoming Zen Headbutt. I honestly should have gone for Shadow Claw here, as it would have easily one-shot the Bronzong. At +6, his next 2 Pokemon are extremely easy. Corviknight goes down to a single Shadow Claw, and the Terastallized Tinkaton goes down to a Drain Punch. Winning this battle literally makes this child cry. Oh my god, are we a bad person? The next Elite Four member is our bro, Larry, who is now using Flying-type Pokemon. He leads off with one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time, Tropius, as we lead off with Rubinia. On turn 1, we set up a Calm Mind, raising our special attack and defense. Tropius then uses Sunny Day to set up the Sunlight. Thanks to Tropius' Chlorophyll ability, it now outspeeds us on the next turn. It goes for Solar Beam and hits, but thanks to our special defense boost and the fact that Tropius is a Butts Pokemon, we only take 31 damage. With Tropius unable to do any damage to us, we set up 5 Calm Minds and then Baton Pass out to Ivy. The next turn, a Solar Beam does pitiful damage, and we knock out the Tropius with a single Thunderbolt. Next out is the Staraptor, who lowers our attack with its Intimidate ability. It then outspeeds us and hits us with a Brave Bird. And this Brave Bird does so much damage, taking us all the way down to just 15 HP. A Thunderbolt is then enough to knock out the Staraptor. I really should have given Ivy the Choice Scarf here, as it would have allowed us to outspeed and one-shot the Staraptor. Out next is the Altaria, and because we don't have the Choice Scarf, we can switch into Moonblast, which easily one-shots the Dragon Pokemon. Larry's fourth Pokemon is the Electric-type Flyer, Orikoro. Seeing as Thunderbolt will also do neutral damage to this, we go for our strongest move, Moonblast, and it easily gets the one-shot. Out last is Flamigo, and because we outspeed it, we can easily one-shot it with a Thunderbolt, winning us the third Elite Four battle. Oh my god, does every single Elite Four member look absolutely distraught after you beat them? Poor Larry. The last remaining Elite Four member is Hassel, and we have the type advantage over him, so we should be able to take this battle fairly easily. Hassel starts out with a Noivern as we lead off with Ivy. Ivy is equipped with Choice Scarf, meaning that we can outspeed all of his Pokemon. Turn 1, we lock ourselves in the Moonblast, which easily KOs the giant-eared Pokemon. Hassel then sends out Dragalge, who we can't one-shot with Moonblast. But we do over half damage with our first Moonblast, meaning that a second will finish it off. In between, it uses a Sludge Wave, dealing decent damage and gets the Poison, which is super annoying. A second Moonblast then finishes off the Dragalge as Poison chips us down to just 60 HP. Haxorus is up next, and we can easily outspeed it and one-shot it with a Moonblast thanks to our Choice Scarf. His fourth Pokemon, Flapple, experiences the same fate, getting one-shot by a Moonblast as Poison takes us to just 18 HP. I'm honestly unsure if we can one-shot Baxcalibur. Being unsure, I switch into Vendilion, who takes a little more than a fourth when resisted Icicle Crash on the switch. The following turn, we outspeed and hit a Play Rough to take Baxcalibur all the way to the orange. It then just uses a neutral Brick Break, taking us down to 71 HP, meaning next turn we can outspeed and finish off the Pseudo-Legendary with a Gigaton Hammer. After the battle, Hassel gets extremely emotional just like every other Elite Four member before him. But at least this time he seems happy for us, crying tears of joy. With the Elite Four down, it's time to face the first of 2 champion battles. This one is Geeta. She leads off with a Pathra as we lead off with Glenalendra. On turn 1, we set up a Swords Dance to raise our attack 2 stages. Thanks to the Lady Gaga bird's Opportunist ability, it gets the Copy Art boost, but its only physical attack is Quick Attack, which can't even hit Glenalendra, meaning it can't take advantage of our boost. The Weird Ostrich then uses Dazzling Gleam, which breaks our disguise. The following turn, we set up a second Swords Dance, taking us to +4 attack. She then takes this turn to set up a Reflect, which is kind of annoying, but honestly, we can get through it. The following turn, we set up a final Swords Dance, taking us to +6 attack, and we prepare for the sweep. Espathra hits us back with a Luminous Crash that doesn't even take us below half, but it does lower our special defense by 2 stages. A Shadow Claw one-shots the Espathra. Her next Pokemon, King Gambit, then goes down to a single Drain Punch, healing us in the process. After that, Avalugg takes 2 Drain Punches, but honestly, an Earthquake doesn't do too much, so we're perfectly fine afterward. Her Go-Go then goes down to a single Shadow Claw, as does her Veluza. She then sends out her ace, Glomora, who Terras into a pure Rock type, and because we outspeed, we can one-shot it with a super effective Drain Punch and win this battle. Gita is such a chump for a champion. She got swept by a Mimikyu of all things. With the champion down, we can now head to face the real champion, Nimona. And she's honestly a much bigger challenge than Gita. She leads off with Lycanroc as we lead off with Rankle. The Lycanroc outspeeds us and sets up a Stealth Rock. But that's all it's going to get to do because a super effective Brick Break from Rankle is going to be enough to get the clean one-shot. Her second Pokemon out is Orthworm. Both Brick Break and Fire Punch are super effective versus the Orthworm. And they both have 75 power. The tiebreaker here is that Fire Punch could burn, so we go for that. And get rewarded for our play with a burn. Thanks to the burn, an Iron Tail then does less than half to Rankle, as Orthworm takes chip from the burn. The following turn, a Brick Break is enough to finish off the worm. Nimona's next Pokemon is Goodra, and Rankle doesn't currently have a Fairy type move, so we need to switch out. We select Vendilion, who takes light damage from a Stealth Rocks on entry. The Goodra then goes for a Sludge Bomb, which Vendilion is immune to, and we heal back the damage taken from Stealth Rocks with our leftovers. The following turn, we set up a Stealth Rocks of our own. Then Goodra hits us with a pretty weak Muddy Water that lowers our accuracy. After a turn of Protect for leftovers recovery, we go for the Play Rough and miss. This allows Goodra to hit us with a second Muddy Water that lowers our accuracy another stage. After another turn of Protect Leftovers Recovery, we select the second Play Rough, this time hitting, but the damn Gooey Dragon survives with a sliver of health. This lets it hit a third Muddy Water, taking our accuracy all the way down to -3. You would never know that this move only has a 30% chance to lower accuracy. With our accuracy so low, I have to switch out now. I go out into Bitter Blossom, who takes chip damage from the Stealth Rocks on the switch in, and then gets hit with a Muddy Water that is pretty weak, and for the first time in 4 turns, doesn't get the accuracy drop. On the following turn, Goodra outspeeds and hits us with a Sludge Bomb, taking us to the orange, activating our Citrus Berry for some recovery. A Moonblast then cleans up the Goodra. She then sends out her next Pokemon, Palmot. Staying in here would mean that we'd be risking a crit, so we have to switch out, and we choose to switch to Glenelendra, who takes Stealth Rock chip damage as she comes in. Palmot's Double Shock then breaks her disguise. We then outspeed on the following turn and set up a Swords Dance to raise our attack. Palmot then goes for an Ice Punch and crits, taking us to just 40 HP. This activates our Citrus Berry and takes us back above half. The following turn, we go for a Play Rough and take out the Palmot in one shot. Up next, Nimona sends out her Dunsparce. And the Dunsparce doesn't have the highest attack, so we can take this turn to set up another Swords Dance. She then also takes this turn to set up, going for a Coil, raising her attack and defense. The next turn, we outspeed, go for a Drain Punch, hoping for the one-shot, but the damn Dunsparce survives on what must be about 1 HP. But the Drain Punch heals us all the way to full, meaning we can take whatever this thing is going to throw at us. It then hits us with a Drill Run, taking us just above half. Then, a second Drain Punch the following turn is enough to finish off the Dunsparce. Up last is her ace, Skeledirge. Like in every rival battle in this game, she Terra types it into a pure Fire type. And this is the whole reason we set up Stealth Rocks earlier. The Fire type takes a lot of chip damage on entry from the Stealth Rocks, meaning his Shadow Claw at +4 can easily take it out. After not 1, but 2 champion battles, you would think we'd be able to declare this run a victory. But in Scarlet and Violet, that's not the case. We still have one more big baddie to face, AI Turo. He uses all Paradox Pokemon, so this is going to be a challenging fight, and we may lose some of the friends we've made along the way. He leads off with Iron Moth as we send out Ivy. The Moth then outspeeds us and goes for a Sludge Wave that deals massive damage, taking us all the way down to just 16 HP. Luckily we survive, and a Psychic is enough to one-shot this weird Pokemon. Up next is Iron Hands, and this Pokemon has priority Fake Out, so we have to switch. We choose to go out into Vendilion, who resists the Fake Out, and after Leftovers recovery is only down 7 HP. I then take a turn to set up Stealth Rocks with Vendilion. The Iron Hands then goes for a Thunder Punch that hits hard, taking me below half. We then take a turn to go for Protect for a little bit of Leftovers recovery, and hopefully we can survive another one of these hits. We go for Play Rough and it deals not even half. Then the Iron Hands responds with a Thunder Punch that is enough to knock out our Vendilion. It is truly sad to lose the Pokemon that I did this whole run for, but we will avenge her. On the free switch, we send in Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom outspeeds the Iron Hands, goes for a Moonblast, and finishes it off. Out next is Iron Jugulis, and thanks to its flying type, it takes massive damage from Stealth Rocks on entry. Iron Jugulis then goes for a super effective Flash Cannon that we take pretty easily. Then, thanks to the Stealth Rock damage, a Moonblast is enough to easily finish off the Iron Jugulis. Our fourth for Turo is Iron Thorns. We decide to stay in here and go for an Energy Ball that deals good damage but isn't quite enough for the KO. And with our pretty weak defense, a Stone Edge is enough to absolutely obliterate our Bitter Blossom. I'm a lot less sad about this loss, but still a little sad. We then send out our Pokemon that's been an absolute carry this whole time, Glenalendra. She outspeeds and finishes off Iron Thorns with a Drain Punch. Iron Bundle is up next, and honestly, this thing is bugged. In my 3 fights with it so far, it's only ever spammed Snowscape and never done any attacking moves. This means it'll set up the snow, but 2 Drain Punches will just finish it off without it doing anything else. This brings out Turo's final Pokemon, Iron Valiant. With our disguise still intact, we aren't in much danger. The Iron Valiant outspeeds, goes for a Spirit Break that lowers our special attack, and breaks our disguise. We then go for a Play Rough that hits, and to my surprise, knocks out the Iron Valiant and wins us this run. This run was honestly insanely fun. I'm surprised I got through with only 3 deaths. I plan on doing a Monotype Nuzlocke of every type in Gen 9, so let me know what type you want to see in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, shorts are comfy and easy to wear.